I get asked this everywhere I go. When should I change? And when should I flip? Don't look at the blade. Look at the product you're cutting. We need to get out of the cab, get down there, check the stems. Want to see a razor sharp cut. We want a nice clean cut. We want that plant to still be a whole plant. And if we see fraying, if we see splitting and things like that, your regrowth is going to be slower. So that's going to be time to change, time to flip.
Morning, everybody. Jeff Jackson, the Forage fan addict. We're here at the High Plains Journal event right now called HPJ Live, and I am with Matt Float. Matt Float works for Web Cutting Components,
Correct?
and we just had such a fantastic conversation that I needed to bring him on so we can all talk about. We spent a lot of time on my platform talking about how to get a crop started, how to raise a crop. And I'm one of these crop growers too. And I walked by this booth where he's got all these neat cutting components laying on this table in front of us. And I'm like, let's talk about cutting alfalfa or grass hay or sorghum crop, whatever it might be. So Matt, tell the people out here a little bit about the company you work for and what's going on.
Sure. So like I said, I'm Matt with Web Cutting Components. We manufacture a lot of sickle sections and different combine parts and things in-house in Grand Island, Nebraska. But we do also import some other things, especially our disc mower blades. It's something we're really proud of. It's kind of a flagship thing for us. We feel it's the best in the industry. But a small family-owned company that really is trying to grow in the market, and that's what we're here doing, just get some brand recognition.
Oh, part of what drew me to this booth, obviously, is that we have some, I'm going to call them aftermarket components, so it's not OEM.
Correct.
And we always talk about how maybe we can get a little bit better quality component to help us with our cutting edges. And some of the alfalfa customers, especially that I have, they talk about, I heard this comment, and you can help me with this too, but a lot of guys are like, what's going to cut my alfalfa the best and give me the best, cleanest, sharpest cut? So first of all, we talked a little bit about sickle sections. Just give us a quick overview of, and I know everybody's after this high-speed machine. We're going to go faster, better ground speed, but right. I want to take just a second to talk about the precision and the clean cut of a sickle versus a disc mower blade, if you will.
You bet. So with a sickle machine, you're using a scissor action. So if you think about that, you're going to get a good clean cut with a sickle machine, even if we're talking cutting hay. Like we've discussed a little bit, we're after speed, and so that's why most folks are drifting towards those disc mowers for that very thing. But if you are after a true clean cut, a fine-tooth sickle machine that you run a little bit slower will give you a nice clean cut on that. It'll last a long time, and it holds up to a lot of the field things that you run into. It holds up to a lot of the dirt that we get in the header and things like that. So longevity, clean cut, you can't beat a sickle machine.
So I just wanted to cover that because there's all these questions. People always ask, should I be considering a sickle if I want a better cut? Answer really is kind of a resounding yes.
Yes.
It's going to give you a cleaner cut. Now, we're going to move on to a different component, and we're going to talk about these disc blades for a minute because I own a disc machine, and that's what drew me to the table. I'm like, man, I need some new blades. But talk to me a little bit about the difference between the OEM blade I might have gotten on my, I'm going to just tell you, I've got a 131 case machine. Same thing as a 1431 New Holland, and there's probably another prototype out there that I don't even know which one it is. But
right. So there's a lot of similarities in those machines and their blades. The thing we need to watch is the profile on them. I brought one OE blade that I have. It's kind of hard to tell on here, but there's going to be two sharpened edges on most blades, and it's going to have some kind of twist in the hole. So it is critical that you get the right size blade for what you're doing, because we can get into some safety issues if you get too long of a blade. We're going to have some contact in there. If the bolt hole's too big, we're going to wear that out. So we've got to watch those things. And and you can see top and bottom bevel are very important. So the OE blade, as I've shown here, is just another OE blade. Typically are colored that flat black color, and you'll see that in just about every OE out there. And some of the characteristics of them is they are shaped, then they are hardened, and then they're sharpened. So my biggest problem with that is you're going to take some of the temper out of that blade when you sharpen at the very end. So our process is a little different on that. Is our blade is fully sharpened all the way to the end, just because we're going to roll that edge on, then we're going to shape it, harden it, then we're going to coat it. So we keep that temper in that blade. Then you're always going to ask, well, how do you know your blade is better? And I can do that right here by sitting here, just by tapping these blades together. And you can see, I put a chip
Yeah.
in that blade. My blade's just fine.
I'm going to
So,
take some photos when we're done, and I'll post some photos with this so you all can see what that does. But what I think the biggest thing that we just talked about here a minute ago too is that that blade is shaped with your rolling action as you push that steel back in versus trying to grind it back off and losing that temper.
right, we're losing that temper. You're losing some of that mass. Just a quality product that way, and we feel we've tested and tested that's shown that our blades will hold up. They hold up in those rough conditions where we're hitting the prairie dog holes, we're hitting pivot tracks, things like that. We just hold up for a lot longer. We keep our optimum sharpness longer on that blade, and so for me, it's just that quality product that I can put up against anybody's and feel good about my results at the end of the day.
So we talked a little bit about that earlier, and I know it's not an absolute number because everybody's conditions are different. It's going to depend on the crop that you're cutting, how fast you're going. I'm guessing even gravel road dust at the edge of the field, you got all that grit out there. It might take a little bit out of that blade as well. But if we needed to compare today, just as an example, because it's not an absolute, but do we get 20% more wear, 30% more wear? There's got to be some kind of a neat range in there where you say, you know what, you shouldn't have to replace it so frequently. What's that look like?
Yeah, so on our blade, you're going to stay at that optimum sharpness. We're averaging a 25-ish range, longer blade life
Right.
on those between flipping and changing, just because of our manufacturing process. So we just stay at that optimum sharpness, and we keep the mass of our blade longer
So
that way.
one of the questions that I had for you too is we talked about how we can lose the temper on some of those other blades
Hmm.
with sharpening. Now, is it okay to sharpen your blade at some point when you're going through this process? Because at some point we're going to lose enough edge that we're like, I'm trying to record. Thank you.
So with that, we never recommend sharpening because, again, that's going to take the temper out. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to sharpen. You put heat to the blade, it takes the temper out. That's anybody's blade. The more heat we put to it, the more temper we're taking out. We're changing that metallurgy in that blade by adding heat to it. The best thing to do would be to flip if you have that opportunity available, if the blade isn't wore out that much, or replace. Those are your best two options, and that is so that you keep that optimum sharpness and you get a good clean cut on your product.
Right. So I asked that question as kind of a loaded question because I'm pretty sure I knew the answer. So, folks, that's the difference. When you have that good rolled shape there that you're going to use as a cutting edge, you don't want to heat that up and lose your temper because otherwise you're back to a
Exactly.
very similar situation where you're just going to have a blade that's going to wear faster at that point.
Exactly. And something else what we'd like to touch on while you got you, I get asked this everywhere I go. When should I change? How many acres, and when should I flip? When should I change? And I have gone through enough testing. Don't look at the blade. Look at the product you're cutting. We need to get out of the cab, get down there and look. Check the stems on what you're cutting. Because what we want to do is want to see a razor sharp cut. We want a nice clean cut. We want that plant to still be a whole plant that's left. And if we see fraying, if we see splitting and things like that, your regrowth is going to be slower because that plant's going to have to heal before it gets to come back. So that's going to be time to change, time to flip is when we're not getting a good cut and we're ripping.
Yeah. So and I'm going to throw out another curveball that we didn't discuss earlier, but I work in the sorghum business.
Mhm.
And so alfalfa is one thing.
Mhm.
And we have, the ability to regrow from the crown. The buds are going to take off. So if we get a little bit of it's not as clean on that stem, we still have a lot of growing points that are going to take off. We don't, I'm gonna say this lightly, we don't dam it as much as we can on like a sorghum stem
Mhm.
that's larger And when we hit it, it has a tendency to maybe shatter more. Well, again, by having a sharper blade,
Hmm.
better edge, it's going to give us a better regrowth potential, because if we shatter that too much, we get fusarium stalk rots in there and just open it up for anthracnose and all this other stuff. Do
Right.
you have any experience with that, or can you comment on like a sorghum crop, a little bigger stem?
So we didn't do a ton of testing in that area, so I
Yeah,
can't give you an exact like I can with the alfalfa.
right.
But we did find with a lot of those thicker stems, even hemp that we found that
Yeah.
doesn't regrow, they found that they get a better yield by getting a straight cut on their end product, not on the plant that's left in the ground.
Oh, sure.
So there's a little bit of that avenue of, hey, we didn't shatter the plant itself that we cut off, and we can use that extra
So
inch to inch and a
the
half.
processing process, when they go to processing, they can use more of that plant, so they have less
Exactly.
waste at the end of the day.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's all those little things out there. So again, we spend so much time trying to get the soil fertility right, grow the crop, and then we need to take care of that crop at the other end too. So it's very important to have good equipment and the right. Oh, another thing that we were going to talk about a little bit is there's always this comment about the degree of twist in these blades.
Sure. So we can cover a little bit of that. It's pretty easy when you think in terms of weight. So the heavier the product, the higher the pitch needs to be. Uh, we've kind of gotten into this groove of 18 degree, 18 degree, 18 degree. That's not always your best degree of blade for every crop. Heavy stemmed, well feeding, mild height product feeds really good at a high speed with an 18-degree blade.
Yeah.
If we step down in some things that are like I'll go back to our hemp studies that we did. We actually dropped down to a 7-degree because it's so tall that it wouldn't feed. So we went with a 7-degree. We have less dirt and things from the vortex that though they create, which they liked again. They did lose a little bit of ground speed, but it's such a big product, we're losing a lot of ground speed anyway.
Right.
So the varying degrees really like the lighter stem, lighter weights, like prairie grasses and things of that nature, like a low degree blade. Get down to the 7 degrees, you won't get as much dirt, you'll get better flow, and you won't just get that vortex of it binding. So if you're getting binding in your head and it's piling up in the corners, you've got too much degree usually on your blade, and it's making this vortex that's just fluffing rather than feeding.
So that's a good thing to remember.
Yes.
You might have to have a couple different sets of blades in the warehouse or in the shop.
Sure.
And if you're having some trouble, or you're in a hurry and you don't change, and then you start having trouble, maybe that's one thing to be looking at is the degree pitch. Think about the how it's going to feed through, and just do some changes. It doesn't take a horribly long time to change. You figure out how much time it takes to sit there and unplug stuff and
Oh yeah.
fight versus just change the dang blades.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And the quick change equipment out there that's there, you can change super fast.
Yep.
And if you don't have that, even our wonderfully battery powered impacts that we have out there make this job so easy. There's really no excuse not to go ahead and change your blade if you're having a problem.
Yes.
Um, and one other thing that I have found that's come up a lot more recently is uh, remember that there's other components involved in this system, the fastening hardware, the accelerators. If you're having feed issues, you've changed your blades and you're still having feed issues, or you're having skip in the field, your hardware usually is what's to blame there.
Right.
Those bolts, those fasteners, those holders, they get flat spots on them. They'll bind those blades and start to cause you problems. So after a couple sets of blades, you really need to look over your hardware too, and take a look and make sure that that's in proper working order without a flat spot on
I think that's a fantastic comment, because I wonder how many sets of blades on average people go through, or if they even ever go change some of those other components to make sure that the rest of the system's not wore out.
Exactly. We find that to be true. They'll flip a blade and they'll change a blade, but then the rest of the hardware gets worn out. Then they have feeding issues. That's when I get a call. Hey, your blades aren't feeding. It's usually not the blade's problem. Let's look at the rest of the program, and we find that that's usually the case. Is our hardware is the second thing to cause problems, and the turtles and accelerators from them will give you fits as well. But just look over the overall maintenance of the machine, especially in those down times between cuttings or in the fall when we're all done before we put it away. Let's put some new hardware and some new products on there to get it to feed right.
I think that's such a valuable conversation today because, folks, there are times where people will call me and say, hey, I'm in this sorghum crop right now and I need some advice because you told me this was going to be a fabulous feed crop, and now I'm out here and I can't get it to flow. It won't run. And I'm like, well, I'm telling you what, there are millions of acres of that same thing that get cut by the same machine. So there's something in this mechanical process. It's got to be speed, RPMs, blades, other components. It will go through, folks. We just have to pinpoint what that problem is. It's usually not that you planted a specific crop. It's the rest of the process. So
Exactly.
again, Matt, I want to thank you today for taking the time to join us. This is Matt Float from Web Cutting Components, Grand Island, Nebraska. So if you have any questions, you can funnel them through myself, or how do we get a hold of you? Your company.
Yeah, we get a hold of us on our website. It's an interactive page at webcuttingcomponents.com.
Components.com, folks. Again, this is Jeff Jackson, the Forage Fan Addict. I hope you're having a great day, and we'll catch you later. Thank you.